Welcome, everybody, to Doug Wilson and Friends. We have Doug Wilson here, and we have some friends. Dr. David Talcott. We have Jared Longshore here.
And who are you?
And my name is Wade Stotts, The Wade Show with Wade. Check it out, everybody. So what we're going to be talking about, conservative infighting, the Buchanan meme, the Buckley meme. We'll get there. But first, we have some some sort of business to take care of. As it is Snow Quarter November, you see the horse.
I thought that burned.
Yeah, it's trickery. Does this guy have a name, by the way? Do we know? I feel like we should, by the end of this episode, come up with a name for the horse. I don't know. Doug, you got one?
I don't.
No, okay. Maybe by the end. We'll work on it. So No Quarter November announcements. We have Canon Press giving away Doug Wilson's entire Canon Press library away this year, 8 books at a time with each blog. So 24 books a week. That sounds insane.
It's insane.
That's too many, right?
24 books a week?
Yeah. Not many authors have that many books to give away.
That's right.
It's pretty incredible. So this week, Rules for Reformers, Plot Activity, Proof as Moral Obligation, which is brand new.
Yeah.
Serrated Edge, Wordsmithy, Get the Girl, Same-Sex Mirage, Ecochondriacs. Stay tuned for Wednesday and Friday's giveaway. That's just Monday's giveaways. Also, we will be giving away a flamethrower this year, and any Canon Plus subscriber can get that. So get subscribed at joincanonplus.com. Your name will be entered to win. Very exciting stuff.
There you go.
So I looked this morning, and it's been the case for a few days, but Pat Buchanan is trending on Twitter. I think partly to do maybe with his birthday, his 87th birthday having happened over the weekend. But there's sort of, and this is happening while there's been a bunch of infighting within the conservative movement, the MAGA, whatever you want to call it. I first want to talk about maybe the sort of meme version of the conflict, the way people thinking about Buchanan, how that's arisen, and also what Buckley represents in this sort of meme scheme. There we go. And maybe talk about if that's the lesson we should draw from that time, and if not, what should be the lesson. So maybe start us off, Doug.
All right. So the meme, the narrative that people are trying to cast is that Buchanan was the true blue one. He was exiled and shunted aside. William F. Buckley was the organizer, compromiser, the one who made conservatism respectable, gave it a place, and then the disease of respectability overtook it, right?
And you, not a fan of respectability, I've seen in recent videos.
Yeah, we've recently made a statement about that. There are challenges with this. So first, my credentials to speak to this at all. I'm probably one of the few people in this conversation who actually has voted for Pat Buchanan in an actual election.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Right. So, I liked him. He was the one who coined the phrase "culture war" at the Republican convention. He did a lot of good things. And I was happy to vote for him and did so. I was also introduced to conservative thought by Buckley. So I ran across Buckley when I was in high school. I picked up his book, Up From Liberalism, read it. He made an immediate conquest of me because he was intelligent and he was uncompromising and he was having fun. Right? Now, there were basically you can't have any kind of movement that grows to any kind of size without factions developing and people having to choose. And so Buckley, his first major move was that of excluding the John Birch Society from the mainstream conservative movement. Then later it was Joe Sobran, who was a writer for National Review and was squeezed out at National Review. And then there were some other things of a similar nature. And now National Review is largely what people have accused Buckley of making it. It's sort of an anemic form of conservatism. But then, of course, the people who are lauding Buchanan, some of them are barking mad. And they'll hold up Buchanan, but they're not like him at all. And in short, it's far more tangled and complicated than a simple, here's a stooge of the establishment, Buckley, and here's the true blue opponent of the establishment. Anybody who knew Buckley in the early years knows how much of a transformational impact he actually had. So he was the one who established the beachhead in which it was possible for Buchanan's and the moral majority and other factions within the right to even exist.
Yeah. Guys, any further thoughts there?
Yeah, I just think the messiness makes sense. And the fact that it's kind of a meme on the internet, that could just be yesterday's news in a moment. But I think even Buchanan spoke positively about Buckley, right? Like I think after Buckley died, he was still lauding his efforts, which was an interesting part of, say, the way that the internet divides now, and the way this is going to happen with every movement, as you said, Doug. But we really shouldn't be eager to make it happen too soon. Right. So I would love for if you say, what should conservatives do now after Charlie Kirk's death? It's like, now I think it's a great time for infighting. Like, let's go for that. You know what I mean? Like, no, that's a terrible idea. No. Why don't we endure together? And maybe I would be interested to dive into the Buchanan-Buckley thing and to see how they endured. I obviously know there were public disagreements and things said and all of that, but something was still preserved, even there in our recent history. So we might have a lesson to learn. Yeah.
And when you voted for Buchanan, was that in the 1992 election? Would that have been? Do you remember?
It was. I only had the opportunity to vote for him in the primary.
Okay.
So it was. Yes, probably then.
Right.
It was. I think it was the year of the culture war, the concession speech at the Republican convention.
I saw recently, I think somebody talked about this in the newest Buckley biography, that Buckley was excited that Buchanan was running at the time, that he wanted Bush to win, but he was excited that Buchanan was running mainly so that he could push Bush a little bit further right. And this was around the same time as this controversy between the two was happening publicly. And so in the same way, Buchanan had positive things to say about Buckley, and wrote for the magazine, picked up the magazine early on, and it is interesting that not like people are not like Buchanan. Maybe some of his admirers are not like him, even in his admiration of the anti-communist project of the National Review. And history can make those lines a little bit, I guess, clearer, or clearer than they actually are in reality. Is that fair?
Because it's simplistic. White hats and black hats. When you're mobilizing the troops, you want to make life simple. They've got that color uniform.
Right.
Shoot at those people. But it's just not that way in real life.
Okay. So if that's not the lesson that we should draw from the Buckley-Buchanan, these two pictures, which way, right-wing man, if that's not the lesson, is there any kind of lesson that we can draw from those two figures?
I would go back to Alexander the Great. When he died, it left this tremendous vacuum, and naturally people want to be the heir of this movement. Who's going to be the heir of Charlie Kirk? Right. So he was an influential figure when he was alive, and then when he was martyred, that made him even more of a potent force. So is it going to be the turning point successors? Will it be the dank right Nick Fuentes types? Will it be the establishment reasserting itself, the Mitt Romney wing of the party? Right. The deep state. And so a lot of people are seeing an opportunity to post up under the basket, basically. And I think that that's what we're seeing, pure and simple. I think people ought to just tend to their own knitting and keep doing what they were doing before and not trying to grab the standard.
Right. And I think that the current version of this is people are trying to draw those lessons and maybe apply them to the Tucker heritage thing that's going on right now. The associations, can we cancel people the way that Buckley did, or did Buckley cancel people in the way that people think? Maybe let's talk a little bit about the ways in which those conflicts are relating to the current day conflicts, and also to the phenomenon of what's next after Charlie, what's next after Trump, and various lessons from those controversies. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd be interested in, Doug, you mentioned this in an article, I think the last article before November, we brought up the situation with our friend Nick Solheim, and you were mentioning cancel culture, or the right to, basically the right to gatekeep. So there's going to be gatekeeping, and then there's going to be the naughty kind of cancel culture. And I actually would be interested in that conversation, and basically what you think, because it seems to me the young conservatives on the internet who basically think everything is out here on the socials, so it really gets disembodied. And even they're not even, I think several of these people are not even in institutions and have not exercised institutional leadership and have not said yes to that hire, no, that guy needs to go, and that actually being a just thing and a right thing to do. So I think there's a lot of cancel culture is bad, but we actually need some standards so we know when it's just, when it's unjust.
Which is tough when everybody can have a platform. So that there aren't magazines. It's not the same kind of thing necessarily as who gets to write in National Review. You can't decide who gets a podcast in the same way. So it's a little messier.
Yeah, there's on the Buchanan thing, there's an interesting op-ed that John O'Sullivan of National Review wrote after some of the dust-up was going on back in '92, basically saying we're not really trying to ostracize Pat Buchanan. We just were critical of certain things he did and said. We thought they were over the line, but we still think it's good he's in the race. We're supporting him. And he says we have to have a kind of a big enough conservatism where people can make a mistake, and having one bad judgment doesn't end their life. So to distinguish between the really persistently bad agents that are destroying what's going on, right? So the parasite versus people who are more or less on the right track and perfectly good part of the coalition, but made an error, made a mistake. They can acknowledge it and move on, or if it's given the public, they should not acknowledge it and move on. But given the nature of the situation, maybe it's hard for them as a politician to do that the day before the election or something like that. But figuring out a way to distinguish that seems like it's important. And it's messy now, right? Especially because all the boundaries are getting redrawn. So this feels like it's the meta story here is you have the old Buckley-Reagan conservative coalition. That's been in the process of busting up for the last 10 years with Trump and other things going on. What's going to emerge? How's the consolidation going to work for the ascendant Trump wing of the party, which is clearly ascendant, it's clearly running things. How's that consolidation going to happen? Where exactly is this line going to drop? Who's in and out? And I think you raised a really good question about how to draw that line between the bad agents we really do need to keep out versus other guys that we can work with.
One of the things I think we ought to throw into this is good definitions. What is cancel culture exactly? What is gatekeeping exactly? And these are shifting definitions, because when Buckley founded National Review, it was in short order that he became the national spokesman for conservatism, but he was simply the editor of a magazine, right? But those were the days where there were three networks, CBS, ABC, NBC. There was one local station usually. There was the New York Times and the Washington Post and the LA Times. And then you had this magazine that attracted attention, and Buckley was the editor, and it was the only game in town, right? So consequently, there was no distinction to be made between an editorial choice to not publish this guy and canceling the possibility of him having a career as a conservative writer. Okay, now there are multiple magazines, multiple websites. So gatekeeping is not the global thing that it was, because we have scores of gates. We got all kinds of gates now. Before, gatekeeping was the thing when you just had a handful of gates. That's one thing. Cancel culture would be when you try to ruin somebody's life. You not only say you're not writing for my magazine, but I'm going to see to it that you're not going to write for anybody ever again. I'm going to blacklist you and ruin your life and get people to dox you. That's cancel culture. So it's not cancel culture to say, I don't like what you're selling and I don't want to publish it. I mean, editorial decisions are made all the time by publishing houses. Canon Press does it. I would basically, if someone said, hey, can I publish on your platform? well, do I agree with it? Do I want to promote?
Sure.
That's not tyranny if I say no. But if I then go after the person and say, and I want to make sure that you never work in this town again, that would be cancel culture and objectionable.
I'm thinking up from liberalism, breaking out of the liberal mind. So what's the whole railing against gatekeeping works great if you're a liberal. You don't have any gates. You don't have any community. You don't have any hierarchy. You don't have any order. You don't have anybody at the top that's supposed to say yes and no. So if you're going to be a full-fledged, if you're going to go John Locke's, some kind of social contract out of a state of nature that it's all consent. If you're going to live in that world, then you're going to be railing against gatekeepers. It's actually conservatives that understand my entity. I do want to conserve my institution, whatever it be, my family, my community, but I'm not about world conquest, like you were saying earlier. But that means we do have someone there that's going, that's in, that's not in. So I wonder how the whole gatekeeping conversation, it seems to me on the internet, it's one of those that whether you're going to be more on the Buchanan or the Buckley side of the ledger right now, everyone's kind of like against gatekeeping, like just flat out. And I wonder if that's because of Twitter or whatever, I don't know. But I think it's going to catch up to people. And soon, like when you mature and you actually run something, you go, no, I actually do have a gate and we care about watching it.
The people are really against gatekeeping until they have something to preserve. And then suddenly editorial decisions come in out of nowhere. So
have to make some call. There's an argument to be made, the National Review, I mean, I think everybody would say this, but the National Review coalition as it was gathered around this anti-communism thing. And would that be fair?
Well, it was a fusionism, was it Meyer?
Yes, Frank Meyer.
So he built this coalition of anti-communists, free market guys, and social conservatives. And it was kind of a disparate bunch, but it was basically what made the Reagan coalition work. And they were not exactly birds of a feather, but it was sustained for long enough to do some good. But this fusionist project, they were expecting people to be devoutly Christian in their personal life and never let it come out in public. So everybody would behave decently, but without naming Jesus.
Right.
And I think that's, the Fusion Project ran out of gas for that reason and opened the door for Christian nationalism and or variants to enter the chat.
Right. So you mentioned earlier that the National Review is sort of what people, the parody of the thing that people think that Buckley made it into. Is there a way to do gatekeeping in such a way that it doesn't inevitably become a sort of parody of what people want? It becomes controlled by the most liberal among them, that sort of thing.
I would say that, so I subscribed to National Review when I was in high school and discontinued my subscription maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But the reason I did it was not because they were publishing things I disagreed with. The reason I discontinued is because it wasn't fun anymore. Right? In the early days, they were just having fun. They were fighting and doing good things, and sometimes they would disagree. I disagree with something, like you said. You don't reject everything because they did one thing. One of Buckley's last books was called Gratitude, and he argued there for national service, for example.
Right.
And well, so I did not comprehend that, but I still am enormously indebted to Buckley because he fought like a cavalier. When he was right or when he was wrong, he fought not like a thug, but like a cavalier. And that was the model that I think the current National Review has abandoned. And some of the more strident, exuberant voices on the right have picked up. Now, some of them are having fun in dark places that they ought not to have fun. But this is what lies behind the left can't meme. The left can't meme because they're not having fun.
Right.
And conservatives know how to meme because they're having fun.
Right.
And maybe you could say there's something about fun is there's always risk involved. So things aren't really funny unless there's a little bit of risk. I mean, you're the comedian. You probably would know.
Take a little chance.
You give one and you're like, okay, that didn't hit. Well, I tried, And this is just channeling something that Nate has said in the past about institutions, that the conservative problem is that you want to just protect your institution. So it's like a ship, and the first guys that built it were like sending it out to fight its battles. And then after a while, we just started cleaning the thing up. You know what I mean? Just waxing it down. Right. And I've seen that. And I've seen that with institutions that have stayed around. So they've stayed around, but kind of to your point, it just kind of loses its zest. And the bones are still there. But you can tell they have given up on the risk part. Right. Like it always has to be, what is it for? What's it supposed to be doing?
Yeah, and it seems like the last 10 years has kind of exposed that to a certain extent, right? Because a lot of the legacy conservative institutions have not been particularly effective the last 10 years. It's the new right, whether it's Trump or other things like Charlie Kirk's a great example. There was a little too much, waxing of the boat going on from the legacy institutions, and it was a problem. It didn't meet the needs of the moment, and so that's part of the chaos and infighting that we have now is trying to deal with that. So that's a good point, well taken. Yeah.
The maybe back to the earlier point about the anti-communism being at least one of the ways in which this thing
was one of the tripod
things. That this coalition at some level, the exit of Joe Sobran, the exit of Pat Buchanan, happened in the early 90s. So right after the fall of the Soviet Union, then the coalition at some level starts to fracture. Buckley writes his book highlighting Buchanan and Joe Sobran. I think the book was called Search for Anti-Semitism, I think. And so highlighted two guys who have worked for him and written for his magazine. So is there a sense in which I'm wondering, with this current right-wing civil war going on, is it happening at some level because of the victory of Trump, or like a big major victory for our side? Then I guess things start to fracture.
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
Right? Because in the Biden years, basically everybody the Biden was like the Soviet Union in the Cold War. Yeah. You're galvanized and unified by the opponent that you all have. Yeah. And then as soon as Biden's gone, it's all right. What are we here for? How can we generate clicks now?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And with Biden and Harris gone, the gifts that kept on giving. With our team is in control. Basically, we have the House, we have the Senate, we have the White House, we have more or less the Supreme Court. So, what's going to outrage people now? And so the outrage farmers are going to have to look for Jews.
Sure. Yeah.
Wouldn't that make it a really important moment not to get distracted?
Yes.
Right? Like especially at the
One
national,
would think.
the national level. And I think, props to the Trump administration. I think they've really stayed on task remarkably well. And I hope they keep ignoring everything going on and just staying on task remarkably well.
Right.
And that's a point for all of us. When you have opportunity, stay on task, defeat communism, and then 10 years later, you'll have a chance to deal with the next thing.
And incidentally, that's a big difference between Trump 45 and Trump 47, because Trump 45 did not have message discipline, right? And they are focused and disciplined such that there are things that the Trump administration is doing, which would have been screaming headline issues. One of the things that this fratricidal civil war is doing, it's distracting people from all the things that Trump is
accomplishing
right. while we fight.
Yeah. But to the same point, it is striking that we're having this conversation about the conservative civil war on an election day. So many places are voting for the New York mayoral races now, the governor of New Jersey. It is distracting people from real races that, if Charlie Kirk was still around, would be it would be in the news, would be the central focus, and we'd be a lot more disciplined, I think, which is we did lose a real unifying guy, a guy who kept us focused in a good way.
Yeah, you have the so like that comparison about the fall of communism and then Biden going. That's really good. Like that's the sociological situation. We're also dealing with the biggest shift in principle ever from secularism to the Christ lordship over the nation. And so, I mean, Doug has traveled to all these different major platforms and said simple things like, if there's no God above the state, then the state becomes God. And everybody's like, yes, we agree.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's because Doug's very good at getting people to believe things.
Sure.
But you know what you just admitted. Like secularism is gone. Like the atheistic liberalism is gone. Constructing your civil society on the basis of human reason alone is gone. We're talking about this lovely, ancient, historic way we have constructed our society in the past. Yes, and even in our recent past. But still, going from, I just make decisions based on human reason and maybe historic precedent, to, no, I actually believe there's a God in heaven who has said something to us in the world and in the prophets and the apostles about how we should structure our society. And we actually have a chance to win. Like there's a lot of people that are coming over right now. Right. So now is not the time to get distracted about the Jews. Like now you can develop all of your particular applications downstream, but notice like conservatives should wake up. Everyone with Kirk's assassination, everyone and their mother is moving over to this understanding of a mere Christendom, of some form of a Christian nation. Right. And the people that have influence should be just continuing to lean in and continuing to poke in the eye the insanity of any kind of secular liberalism.
Yeah. Back in the 60s, before Woodstock, before the sexual revolution, the liberal, democratic, secular state could make a case that seemed, on a prima facie level, to be plausible. We don't need God. We don't need denominational distinctives to govern ourselves. The sky's still blue. Everybody's still driving on the right side of the road. This is an orderly society. And secularism, I think, was just as wrong then, but it seemed plausible. Right? They could win arguments by just pointing around. And now it seems incoherent. Secularism, you've got kids in high school, furries and transsexuals. And you think the Supreme Court justice doesn't know what a woman is, not being a biologist, which is, I can't tell if it's raining because I'm not a meteorologist. It's just gotten to absurd levels. And you're exactly right. We need to press the point. So where would you point if you wanted to show me that we can govern ourselves in a sensible way without reference to God? Where are we shining? Where are we doing it? Where are we killing it, a Western man? And we're not killing it anywhere.
Yeah. I think one of the people who has been talking about the importance of Christianity in the public square, a couple of them have been Tucker Carlson and J.D. Vance. And from what I can tell, a lot of we talked about how the current controversy is at some level about what happens next, who gets to lead after this. I don't think it's any coincidence that Tucker, I think at some level, Tucker is getting attacked as a way of getting at Vance, at least for the future. John Davidson at the Federalist made a similar point. And I think that's true. It's interesting to me to think about, yes, the ways in which the Trump administration has been, and J.D. Vance has kept on message, has been, since Charlie Kirk's assassination, sticking to the point about Christianity being central and also domestic issues. Let's focus on the problems we have at home.
Nigerian Christians,
yes, in a big way.
Just aside from any action there.
Yes, right.
Just the optics of verbalizing.
Yes,
hey,
huge.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah. And so I think that as we think through this, it is good to remember that people may be trying to make it about one particular Tucker interview, but there's always some wrestling thing going on somewhere in the background. How would you maybe counsel people to look at all these controversies that are happening within the conservative movement, and then just sit back and go, whose team should I be on? I imagine maybe in the 90s, maybe as you were voting for Pat Buchanan in the primary, did it feel like at the time if I cast this vote for him in the primary, I'm aligning with a dangerous anti-Semite, or if I cast this, or was it like,
No,
it didn't feel like,
no, it didn't feel
I
like
have
that
to be
at all.
on which side am I on? Am I a real conservative, or am I one of those crazy ones?
No, the conservative movement, you would divide up between the rhinos, the liberals who happen to be Republican, the conservatives who were genuinely conservative but were kind of chumps who could get played.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're familiar with the archetype.
And then the people who were principled, even if you didn't agree with all the principles. They
stuck with them.
They stuck with them. Rand Paul is an example of, I'm not a libertarian like he is. I like a lot of what he does, but he's doing what he does because of what he believes, right? So he's on that end. Pat Buchanan was like that. And the old jibe is a racist is anybody who's winning an argument with a liberal. Well, the racist trope and the anti-Semitic trope has been in use for decades. And people, I would describe myself as a paleo-conservative. I've written for Chronicles over the years, which is a paleo-conservative magazine. So I've been in the paleo world for a long time. And we sort of budgeted for and stopped listening to racist taunts and anti-Semitic taunts years and years ago because they were a weapon. They were used as a weapon. And we knew back then there were actual anti-Semites, there were actual Jew haters, and actual racists. But 90% of the time, those terms were deployed against reasonable people. And so when Pat Buchanan was attacked as being an anti-Semite, he just said, bah.
Right.
That didn't enter into it at all.
Did it at all enter into the equation that it was sometimes Buckley making those, at least saying things like he's being contextually anti-Semitic?
Yeah, Buckley lost credibility with me on that issue.
Okay.
Largely because of Sobran. I was just dismayed over Buchanan. Basically, even if this is a very simple point, I think. You can disagree with decisions that Israel makes and not be an anti-Semite. Israeli elections are close, which means that half of Israel wants Netanyahu out.
Sure, right.
That doesn't make half of Israel anti-Semitic.
Interesting, yes.
Right. Yeah. Right. So if an American says, yeah, I'd like Netanyahu out, I differ with that, but that's not anti-Semitic.
Right.
Or the ADL would say any Christian who wants Jews to believe in Christ is anti-Semitic. Which all you're doing is emptying the term of all its value. You're just making the term useless. Yeah. So when Buckley did that, when Buckley went after people who, by all accounts, were responsible, sane citizens, and Joe Sobran was a friend, a colleague, that smelled to me like a political move made for the sake of keeping the coalition together. Let's throw somebody off the sled, let the wolves have him.
When the coalition was at some level in jeopardy.
Correct. So I think that was a political move by Buckley, and I appreciate him, love him, but he lost some respect for him. Even if I think that Sobran and Buchanan could have phrased some of the things they said more carefully.
Yeah. Right. Well, and so maybe give maybe some takeaways everybody can jump in about knowing this about previous controversies and maybe applying that to, hey, we're watching this fight that's happening right now. Do I feel forced to join on one side or the other? Maybe some thoughts on that generally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't at the moment. This is where I was mentioning earlier, like in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, what should we do? Like infighting, let's do that. No, I don't feel
it's time. Yeah.
I enjoy so the degree to which I was riding in a Uber with a guy, Indian guy in DC. He's driving, we were talking about who he listens to, and then like, Tucker comes up and he's like, "Oh no, Tucker's too much for me. Tucker's too much for me," which was very interesting. But he was very into Joe Rogan, which I thought was very interesting to be kind of this dialed into the nuances of these different categories. I would say those would be two guys that I would listen to happily. I don't really have enough time to know all the footnotes in their podcasts, but I'm enjoying. I think we should enjoy the moment. So if guys are feeling any kind of pressure, like I have to be with the really solid, the Buchanan or I'm more of a Buckley, I would say just take your time, like actually have the conversation. There's an interesting video out of it's Christopher Hitchens and Victor David Hansen. Davis Hansen. Davis. Talking about Buchanan's take on World War II. I don't know when that was, 15, 16 plus years ago. And it's like, it's just good to listen to men have an honest intellectual conversation about facts and reality. And I would say move in that direction. Like, don't buy into, it's not time to fracture.
Right.
There are going to be extremes. There's always going to be outliers, and they're going to have to go. But there's still a huge chunk here. You should take your time, listen, grow. And
that interview, Peter Robinson worked for Pat Buchanan, wrote speeches for Pat Buchanan, and had Pat on to talk about his later book, Suicide of a Superpower. So this was not like, I got to make sure to get one over on Pat. It was not like anti-Pat Buchanan as a human being.
Right.
It was, let's argue about history. That's fun.
Yeah.
So I might have a kind of pastoral comment aimed at young men in the discussion, think about these things. And I would encourage them not to throw bombs to try to stir up conflict. Young men are spirited, thumotic, impulsive, prone to recklessness, and that's a good power to be harnessed, but they also don't have a name, so they're trying to make a name for themselves. And just to encourage the young men to think twice, right? Measure twice, cut once. And so cut the right cuts, but measure carefully. And so don't stir up a pot that doesn't need to be stirred up, and don't introduce things to try to add a shock value or something because you think that's the thing to do. Right. That's probably not the thing to do.
Yeah.
And in James, it says, where there's selfish ambition, there you have every evil practice. So there's a vacuum. Charlie Kirk is gone. The conservative movement is currently leaderless. Right? That's, we don't have a pope. we don't have the white smoke. We don't. And so that creates ambitious types wanting to they want to throw their hat in the ring. They want to become that. Or this is the time for us to make our move. And I would say the greasy pole of ambition is something that we ought not to be trying to climb in this moment. Don't make a move. Just do what you were doing before. Stay at your station. Write what you were writing. Make the case you were making, and don't put yourself in a position where you're tempted to throw elbows. Right. Politically, I think if the Trump administration is seen after 3 years, if it's seen as a successful administration, there's no economic crash. The tariffs didn't wreck the world. If it's seen as a successful administration, then J.D. Vance has the nomination walking away. And there'll be some sort of coalition. I don't know, Vance Rubio ticket or something like that. If it starts to fray, if the administration gets off message, and if infighting starts inside the administration, which will be a temptation after the midterms. Right. So after the midterms, we're going to have a new situation. People who were thinking about running for president have to act on it. There will be efforts from the Nikki Haley wing.
Sure.
There'll be a candidate that declares we have to save the country from Trumpism. But everybody who's been identified with MAGA up to this point is going to want to look like they're staying with the coalition. Right. So depending on how strong the administration is, I think it's Vance against whatever Menshevik is put up against him.
Yeah. That makes sense. We do have questions. Lots more to talk about. We do have some questions here. One, first question is, if the Buckley crew had communism that they targeted, what is it that all of our sights should be set on?
What's the big enemy?
Right.
AI.
I wasn't anticipating this. Yeah.
So we are in the middle of a massive cultural transformation, and politics is just the froth on the top of it. So it's sort of like it's like the Industrial Revolution, only 10x. So you had the Industrial Revolution, which was massively disruptive. We had the digital revolution beginning, let's say, in the 80s, to really, when personal computers started coming on, and then the internet. Basically, we haven't caught up yet with, we are technological sophisticates and ethical morons. And basically, anybody who thinks that we are not going to see, we talk about boomers and millennials and Gen X and so forth. I mean, think about the next couple of decades. The kids who grew up babysat by Grok.
Right. Yeah.
Right. What's that going to look like? Educated. What are the educational institutions going to look like? I think that we haven't even begun to get our footing, and a lot of the political turmoil we're having is because we don't know how to process information anymore, and AI is all about processing information. And I wouldn't rule out demons.
Okay. All right.
Come on now.
Sure.
Come on now. Now we're preaching. Now we're preaching.
One other thing, I'm writing about this for No Quarter to November tomorrow. Scientists have now successfully developed a human egg from a skin cell. Okay. And they have fertilized said egg, all right, successfully, which means that you could have two men produce a zygote, right? So we're that hideous strength 10x.
Hold on. Did you say what you said again? You just tell me that we developed an egg.
We have developed
from
a human egg from a skin cell.
Who said?
Discovery Institute. There's an article that I'm going to link to tomorrow.
When did this happen?
Just recently.
We'll send the links.
This is. Come on,
they've been
break
working,
up get the fire extinguisher. Get the flamethrower.
Yeah,
something needs to burn.
I was talking about.
Are you serious? They made they made a human egg out of a skin cell.
Yes, right. And this is the kind of thing, in my thinking, that caused God to flood the world at Noah's flood. Experiments in genetic engineering, and basically we have this beast of scientism, which you have in that hideous strength, which teams up with the demons at some point. And so I don't think we know what layer we're on in terms of the conflict. And the solution is preach the gospel, plant churches, disciple Christians, get your kids in schools that don't let your kids write papers with AI, so that we will have intelligent human beings, educated human beings who can fight the bots.
100%.
That's so an unexpected answer, but I love it. That's
yeah,
the best.
So AI as a example of the scientism, right? It's like the idea that you can scientifically manage life, and that the real problems of life are just sort of technocratic problems that you can solve if you have good enough scientists and good enough bureaucrats that get together.
Enough data.
And there's no exactly. It's like, this is all part of like this scientific worldview where the human is suppressed to the point that we're doing what we're trying.
I forgot who said this, but just read a quote recently. Conservatives like to say, "I'm opposed to socialism because it doesn't work." Well, I'm opposed to it because it might work.
Imagine that.
Right?
Yeah.
You've got a Brave New World set up. Don't underestimate the ability of the totalitolerant to manipulate and massage reality.
They call for Tash. and Tash Kane.
Yeah.
And Lewis.
I think that's the moment. I think that we're in a spiritual. Christians have always been in a spiritual war, but I think we're in a particularly hot battle in that spiritual war.
Yeah, and I would just say this, and riffing on the AI thing, for like dads, moms, young people, you got to connect this creepy thing that I had no idea happened that you just told me happened. They fertilized an egg from a skin cell. So that you have to connect that to like the whole stream of how humans think they exist. So back to like Hobbes' Leviathan, state of nature, social contract. I choose things. Only the things I choose are real. I have no pre-voluntary commitments. Your stuff on Burke, go watch Wade's thing on Burke. On prejudice, we have our prejudices. We love them because they're our prejudices. You have to know that you are a human created in a world. God put you in a world, and you have pre-voluntary allegiances and commitments. And some of this is as simple as we need to go back to the fact of like, let the grandkids sit at granddad's feet and let granddad tell them a story. And it's okay that he told them the same story 3 days ago. Go sit and listen to your granddad. You know what I mean? Like this is, so what's so creepy is that the scientism of AI didn't fall out of the blue. You have to understand that's like, you have been fighting this war for a very long time.
Go back to the abolition of man and that hideous strength. Lewis called it. He called the shot decades before, and that's true conservatism. What are we fundamentally? What does conservatism conserve? And I would argue it's humanity. That's the foundational thing that we're fighting to conserve. There are local battles where we're trying to conserve the American Republican tradition, or in Britain they'd be fighting to conserve certain other customs. But underneath all of it, we are fighting to conserve humanity created in the image of God. And the secularists want humanity created after our own image, where we can stamp whatever we want on that image. And I think that's the battle. We've got weird coalitions because Elon is, he's all about some of these techno developments. And if someone said, okay, we can have chips implanted in your brain and you can learn Spanish, you just put the little thumb drive in, and now you know Spanish. Does that creep you out? It creeps me out, right? And do you go to war with that kind of thing, or are you a Luddite? So there are many aspects of the new technocracy that I think we should applaud. Not be Luddites, that we should be adapters and figure out how to do it right. But there are bad things involved in it too, and we don't have Christian worldview framework to evaluate and say good, bad, good, bad.
And I think part of the AI piece of this is that ChatGPT and other sort of versions of it of AI have been made fun of for being sort of sycophantic and telling you exactly what you want to hear because they want the user to be pleased.
Right.
And so whatever delusion you have, I've seen videos of people tell ChatGPT that they're being followed. What should I do? I'm making it up totally, but ChatGPT sort of encourages and within there says, this is not paranoia. So encourages whatever delusions you want to have and takes you down whatever road you want to have.
Open fire now.
Yeah. and if we are scientists or we're believers in scientism, we don't want somebody to encourage that in us.
Right.
Of course, AI is going to be doing that sort of thing.
And so again, conservatism is about fighting for humanity. It's God's idea of humanity, not
humanity
ours.
as image of God. Yeah. We have time for one more question. Let's see. You may have a similar answer to this one. So, Doug, what is the book that most needs to be written right now, and are you writing it?
I don't know. We're
releasing all your other ones. So
giving all away.
I've been after him to write a book on humor.
Okay.
So that's what I think. But then your response is that all the books on humor aren't funny.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
I've profited from books on humor, but I've not laughed through them.
Yep.
Yeah. Honestly, I think family, the focusing on biblical marriage, having kids, bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. I think that's the blocking and tackling of what we need to be about.
Yeah. Hey,
And
expand
Artie
on that,
wrote
maybe.
those.
So get those.
Those are
We're
probably
gonna
coming up free later
going to
this
be giving
month,
those
right?
away. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good plug. So noquarternovember.com. Check out all those deals. Thank you guys so much for sitting down and joining me. And we will
Thank you.
we'll be back again live, I believe, next week at the same time. So join us then, and we'll see you later.